Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Roadmap webinar series for Blackboard Learn. In this session, we're going to cover the Ultra Course View part. My name is Nicolas Franco. I will be your moderator today. So before we get started, I wanted to go through some housekeeping items. Participants are muted by default. We want to make sure we avoid accidental background noises. If you want to turn off the sound of each pop-up notification as people enter their session, or if there's any discussion in the chat, please open the Collaborate panel on the bottom right corner of your screen. Click on the gear icon and select the notification settings to uncheck the box for audio notification. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback during the session, please don't hesitate to type your questions or your comments in the chat. One of our fellow Blackboarders will do their best to answer as soon as possible. And finally, we will send out the recording via email and post it in the community site. Also, the presentation in PDF version. All right, so with that being said, I will now hand this over to Dom. Hey, Dom, how are you?
Hey Nico, thanks ever so much indeed. And yes, good morning, good afternoon, or in fact good evening for some if you are joining from different parts of the world. Thank you ever so much indeed for joining us. This is the second in today's roadmap presentations, as Nico said, around the Ultra Course View. So let's jump straight in. So for the agenda for today, similar to how we kind of ran the previous session, I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of how roadmaps work and obviously talk about our product vision as well. And then we kind of break it down into the bulk of today's presentation with my colleagues, talking about the recently released, what's coming up next, the work we have in progress, and obviously some of the longer term highlights as well. So just to orientate you to who we are, my name is Dom Gore, and I have my colleagues Yudi Espinosa and Frederick Clemming, who will be doing the main part of the presentation today, and we'll be taking you also through the demonstration. And now as well, because we'll be talking around things that are in sort of our longer term highlights and our 3 to 6 month plans as well. Obviously some of these things are subject to change, so just be conscious of those changes based on things like market conditions and fluctuations as well. But what I wanted to do first of all, before we really jump into the kind of the bulk of the roadmap today, I wanted to start off with something that we've essentially been spending quite a bit of time on and really talking quite a lot about, certainly over the last year or so. And this is actually what we call our Learn Ultra product vision. So this is essentially where we see ourselves going in the next 3 to 5 years. What are those areas that we're really going to be focusing on and really be good at? But crucially, all those things that actually we're not going to be doing as well, because I think that's also important. So during 2020, we spoke a lot with institutions, students, instructors to get their thoughts on their experiences, both during the pandemic, also how things have changed for them this year in 2021, how things are changing as going forward, what is the new norm, and obviously what are the kind of the things that have evolved since that time frame as well. And what this has evolved into is basically the vision that we have focused around 5 key pillars. So if we kind of go a level deeper onto these, you'll focus that we have the pedagogy pillar, which is kind of the core and the center of our vision. And then we have the 4 supporting pillars that are around it. So pedagogy ultimately is focused around providing actionable and personalized insights, informed by rich data, and that's blended with things like research-informed pedagogical understanding and community best practice. And I think this is really important as we focus our developments and our roadmap specifically around this particular area. Now, alongside pedagogy at the core, we have, like I said, the 4 supporting pillars. So first of all, we have progress. This is very much around the concept that learning is progressive in nature. You know, that the LMS should show instructors and learners where they're at, what they're doing and what to do next. It should identify their next step and obviously support them taking forward and moving forward as well. And the idea here is around clearly communicating expectations and supporting things like promptness of feedback. All of this is important as we consider that progress pillar. Next up is collective, and this is actually something that really came out of the conversations that we had with students during 2020. That concept that the LMS can actually be quite a lonely and quite a cold place. You know, what we want to do here is provide an opportunity for shared experiences. We want to have an LMS that helps students and instructors to build those relationships, create those ongoing feedback loops and really support those authentic connections to support that engagement and that research and collaboration that takes place both within inside an institution and also across institutions as well. Efficiency, next up. This one's, fairly obvious, but the idea here is that instructors and students should have an LMS that is built around their workflows. The system should become quicker and more valuable over time. It should recognize personal circumstances and obviously, things such as usage of mobile devices and essentially wherever you are, that bring your own device capability should also be something that's built into this efficiency process as well. And then finally, we have the best-in-class pillar, and this is very much centered around the LMS being a core and centralized component of your institutions, but we know that you have a much wider set of educational technology that forms part of your ecosystem as well. So this is very much around providing seamless integrations with and encouraging the best of use and best-in-class tools and resources. The idea around providing the opportunity to connect with in-person institutional resources and really providing that deep and seamless experience as for institutions and for instructors and students moving forward. Now, obviously with the introduction of the Ultra vision and the pillars that we made roughly a year ago, we have made some other strategic changes with a goal to accelerate the development of Learn Ultra. And that obviously includes growing the size of the team that we have as well. So we're now at a point where we can start to see really the initial results of some of those changes. So on the left-hand side, you can see a summary really of the total number of features and improvements released in the monthly releases. Now, first thing you're going to notice, obviously, that dip that we see there in the Q1 timeframe, as we sort of realign the roadmap to the Ultra vision and really started to grow the team, and then a significant increase in velocity since then, where we are, and essentially we actually see a doubling velocity compared to where we were at this time last year. And if you move your eyes to the right, you'll see a similar view for the assessment and grading related functionality as well. And as part of the pillars and that strategic change that we've made, we have significantly increased our focus on core assessment and grading functionality, and we can see more than a doubling compared to last year already as well. Now, what I want to say here is this is just the first step. We're not going to stop there. We're continually growing the size of the team and are ultimately aiming for Learn Ultra to be really in a fundamentally different and better LMS by the start of next academic year. And obviously with the recent merger of Blackboard and Anthology, this doesn't change any of that. We definitely stay in the course. And in fact, if anything, the merger has actually increased the core focus around this and actually will help us accelerate that development for Learn Ultra. And to coincide with that, something that we really wanted to highlight today, because we thought it was an important milestone, is that we've actually just passed the 1 million active Ultra courses in production, and we're seeing this grow and develop on a daily basis. So this is really a really interesting milestone for us and definitely something that we wanted to highlight for you today. Okay, so that was vision, that was the workflows. Now let's take a level down in terms of really around the roadmap, and let's sort of set this piece up here. So really, roadmaps in their sort of entirety are a fairly complex exercise and definitely constantly evolving. There are lots of different sources of input that feed into it. It could be user experience activities, generative research, conceptual validation, usability testing. All of these things, feedback from market research, usage data, all of these things form the top part of the funnel. And what these actually do is kind of help us to really prioritize moving forward. But it's really important to align these things to our product vision and the direction. And what this actually leads to is obviously the prioritized list that we have and the core roadmap that you're actually going to see today as well. Now, alongside how we determine the roadmap, it's important to understand how we break down the roadmap itself and obviously understand how roadmaps work in their entirety. So really, it's about understanding the certainty and confidence levels when it comes to the roadmap. And as you can see here on this timeline, if you shift to the right-hand side, the further you look out, the less certain and obviously the less level of confidence you have. And it's important because we want to set clear and realistic expectations for you in terms of feature and capability expectations and delivery. So generally within that 1 to 3 month time frame, we have a very high level of confidence. We're going to be providing release dates, and obviously we have that level of information available. As we drill into sort of the next phase around 3 to 6 months, we still have a fairly high level of confidence, 60 to 70%. We do have strong candidates for development. These projects are often in scope already. We don't always have exact release dates, so it's important to note that. And obviously there may be some fluctuations and changes based on things like market developments and client feedback as well. And then if we go to the far right-hand side and we start thinking about the longer-term highlights, this is an area where we start to think about themes and thematics, and not always everything is going to be prioritized. We have ideas of the work streams we're going to be doing, but they haven't necessarily been broken down. We don't have confirmed timelines as yet, and it's obviously very dependent on market feedback, client engagements as well. So as we go through today's roadmap presentation, please keep these components in mind, and obviously that will align specifically to what we're going to go through very, very shortly. So with that, what I want to do is hand over to my colleague, Frederick Clemming, who will kick off today's part of the roadmap presentation. Frederick, over to you.
Thanks, Tom. Hi, everyone. My name is Frederick Clemming, and I'm part of the product management team working on Learn Ultra. And it's my pleasure to take you through the first half of today's roadmap presentation. As always, we want to start off with some recent significant improvements that's been released in the last few months since BB World. And I'm going to start off with features related to improvements in the key area of assessment and grading, an area in which you'll notice, as Dom just mentioned, that we're looking to accelerate our developments over the coming year. Our early adopters have been asking for better ways to customize the Ultra Gradebook, and we've been listening to your feedback and developed Gradebook filtering options as a response. Now, this is a really big and significant change that will allow Gradebook users to filter their view to quickly and easily find the information they're looking for and to initiate the grading workflow. Users can apply multiple filters at once, and this is really powerful. They can filter by group, specific student or students, or graded activity for a flexible, more efficient filtering experience. And as you can see on the slide, we've added a new side panel that will show instructors all available filtering options. And this approach will also allow us to quickly continue to iterate and expand on available filtering options going forward. And while you don't yet have the option to save applied filters in this first version, you can bookmark them in your browser for quick and easy reuse. As part of our focus on grading and assessment, we are continuously working on improving the marking and feedback experience for our users, and we want to make this process as easy as possible, and we have a number of development plans for this area going forward. We recently released a great improvement to our submissions review page by introducing independent scrolling and the capability to collapse the feedback and rubric panel at the right-hand side of the screen. This is a key enhancement that provides instructors with more screen space when evaluating student work and allows them to focus on the submission itself, but it also makes the rubric much easier to use as well. And speaking of rubrics, a rubric, as I'm sure you know, is a very powerful tool to communicate expectations to learners prior to submission and providing them with feedback and guidance post-submission. And assessment goals, again, as you know, can vary greatly and consequently require a greater or simpler set of rubric criteria and proficiency levels as a result. And so thinking about the varying needs of our instructors and in order to support a wider range of assessment goals, we've recently increased the number of supported rubric rows and columns from 10 to 15. Now, this might sound like a fairly small change, but it's actually really significant and impactful as we've expanded the number of available rubric cells from 100 to 225. And again, this is an enhancement driven by direct client feedback that will provide instructors with a greater level of granularity when marking and providing feedback using rubrics. And you'll be pleased to hear we'll continue to enhance our rubrics, but I'll speak a little bit about our plans in that area in the next section of this presentation. We're of course also working on improving the assessment experience for students. Assessment periods can be a very stressful time for students, and we recognize that we need to do everything that we can do to help reduce stress and anxiety around the submission workflow. And so students need a way to ensure that their paper has been submitted successfully into the system. And to that effect, we've recently introduced the first iteration of submission receipts, featuring a unique confirmation number that can be used for tracking purposes. And so providing students with access to submission receipts alongside the existing submission confirmation module will further assure them that their submission was successful. And again, this is phase one of this development, so there's more to come in this area. Moving on to the area of course activities and content, first up is our new Microsoft Teams classes integration. Blackboard support for Microsoft Teams has evolved since the early stages of 2020, and at that time, if you remember, we partnered with Microsoft to create the Microsoft Teams meeting scheduler. Now, this is an LTI app and a development that we fast-tracked at the time as a response to the rapid shift to remote learning driven by the COVID pandemic. And so now in 2021, Microsoft and Blackboard have partnered again on a more fully featured Microsoft Teams classes integration available for the Ultra course view only. This integration combines the benefit of core data exchange between Blackboard Learn and Microsoft Azure AD, the LTI open standard, and the power of Blackboard's premium API framework. And our chosen approach is making it so much easier for instructors to use Teams classes within their courses. This as they can trigger the team creation workflow directly from within their Ultra course, but also because the team membership automatically is synced and stays synced with the course enrollment. So this is really a key benefit for instructors as enrollments may fluctuate, especially during the first week of term. This integration is also a great example of that best-in-class approach that Dom mentioned, as the integration is both deep and seamless and ensures that data flows back and forth in logical ways to manage things like team availability and sync memberships so that instructors doesn't have to worry about these things in the background. We are, of course, continuing to improve this integration, especially around course rollover and archiving processes, but also to support max participant limits within a single course team. So, and also, I mean, with that, if you wouldn't mind, please drop into chat if you've already enabled this integration, as we'd love to hear your feedback on this. On the content creation front, we've introduced support for tables in the rich text editor, a capability that you've been asking for a very long time. Now, tables are a very effective option to enhance the quality of a content item, such as an Ultra document, for example. They offer a different visual element that can effectively capture and present information when done well. And our implementation of table support will allow users to create responsive tables on all form factors. So creating a table on a smartphone or a tablet, for example, just got very, very easy. The table controls are straightforward and intuitive to use and make it easy to create new tables as well as to maintain and update existing ones. And as you'll notice in the upcoming demo, we've also built in some accessibility features, making sure that the tables that you create through the rich text editor can be read by assistive technologies such as screen readers, for example. Shifting focus slightly onto the Ultra course experience itself, the August release saw the delivery of the first in a planned series of improvements to the Ultra course page with the introduction of a new top navigation menu. This change was in response to feedback from the community that the previous icon-based menu was somewhat confusing to use at times. So with a new top navigation menu, we've moved to a text-based menu, and we've relocated the menu from the right-hand side to the screen to the left-hand side to better align with user expectations when navigating online environments. And finally, we've also made a new top menu sticky to ensure that it's always available to users at the top of their browser, even if they scroll down to the last item of a very long page of content items, for example. And overall, these changes make it a lot easier for users to navigate between the different menu options in the Ultra course view. Another project that I'm really excited about is progress tracking. We recently released an alpha version of progress tracking, which includes the ability for instructors to turn on or off progress tracking for students in new courses without any activity. So for courses at the start of term, essentially. And this feature sits behind a feature flag, and I'll explain more about what that means in just a moment. But for now, please just remember that the feature flag for progress tracking will remain in place until the 1st of February 2022. And so when turned on, progress tracking will mark activities like discussions as in progress when students make a post, Assignments and tests are marked as complete when students make a submission, and students can manually mark content that they need to read, watch, or revise as complete when they consider themselves done with it. And the progress tracking as a benefit will provide students with a much better sense of achievement and help them gauge how much of the course they've completed to date versus how much work they've still yet to do. And with our November release, the upcoming release, the limitations around the alpha release will be removed. So instructors will be able to turn on or off progress tracking for courses that's already underway. But as I just mentioned, the feature flag for progress tracking will remain in place until the 1st of February 2022. As I'm sure you know, Ultra is delivered on a SaaS platform, and one of the most powerful elements of being on SaaS is the ability for us to keep all our clients on the latest version of the product and to release updates and deliver value to you on a monthly basis. However, we do understand that there are times during the academic year when it's perhaps not ideal for us to release a new larger feature that might be disruptive. So to improve institution change management and give you more control over when new features become available, and available to your users, we've implemented feature flagging. And so this is a set of new configuration settings that are available in the admin panel, and that provides administrators with the flexibility to review, prepare, and turn on these features at a time more convenient for the institution. And the last theme in this recently released section is related to student support. So we're continuing to enhance our Blackboard Assist solution by bringing one of our own services to the platform and making it available globally at no additional cost. Our first Assist service from Blackboard will be the Ally file transformer. And for institutions who have already adopted and enabled Ally, it already provides students with alternative, more accessible formats for course materials, which is great. But students work with other types of content and the materials too, individually or as part of research projects or group work. And this is really where the file transformer comes into its own right, giving students a way to generate alternative formats for that type of content as well. The Ally file transformer is currently available for clients in the US and Canada who's enabled Blackboard Assist in their Learn environments, and it will become available in the next 1 to 3 months for the rest of the world. I should also point out that this option to enable the file transformer doesn't require an Ally license to be enabled on your Learn systems. We've also recently partnered with Busuu to provide the opportunity for anyone to practice writing, grammar, and speaking with native speakers as part of their language development. This is a fee-based service, but for anyone signing up through Assist, the service is really heavily discounted to about the cost of cup of coffee. So we're hoping that that sort of is a negligible fee point. Moving on to the forward-looking roadmap itself and where we're going from here. So in this next section, I'll cover what's coming in the next 1 to 3 months. These features are features that are currently going through quality assurance testing or that are coming towards the end of their development life cycle. And some of these features will already be available to you in your test environment. So if you want to go and check them out at the back of this webinar, you're able to do so. Right, so let's first kick off with the improvements related to the key area of assessment and grading. I think it looks like I need to go back and reshare the application. Please bear with me for a brief moment. Right. So first up is more granular accommodations. As many of you will know, we support accommodations in Ultra today. However, we do understand that the current options around 50%, 100%, or unlimited extra time doesn't necessarily align well with academic policies at institutions or common practice in this area. So going forward, instructors will be able to set any desired percentage value for extra time, such as 25 or 30%, rather than choosing a predefined. And so with this small but powerful change, we aim to be in complete alignment with current academic practice in this area, as well as the needs of our global user base. Another item in our critical assessment and grading work stream, and a feature heavily requested by our community, is points-based and point-ranged rubrics. Again, this is a highly requested development that will be very welcomed by any instructor or academic who doesn't assess their students out of 100%, but for example, out of 20 or 40 points. So just with the current percentage-based rubrics, instructors will have the flexibility to award either a point or a point range within each rubric cell, allowing students to clearly identify the achievement level for each criterion. Continuing on in the vein of assessment and grading, next up are improvements to BB Annotate, our inline grading tool. Since the initial rollout last year, we've been continuously collecting client feedback so that we can keep updating and improving this very useful tool. So being able to save preferences is key to enable instructors to work efficiently, as many will have their own personal preferences, for example, around the color, the width, and other aspects of the pen and other annotation tools. So we've been listening to your feedback, and with this development, we will be introducing the possibility for users to set their own preferences and save them. And this will then in turn save instructors precious time when grading one submission after another. In addition to this improvement, we're also introducing the capability to save custom stamps, which until now could be created in Annotate but not saved. So once again, this is a great efficiency gain that will make providing students with that rich personal inline feedback both easier and faster going forward. And finally, for the assessment and grading theme in this 1 to 3 months group visibility controls. So we are introducing our existing visibility control to existing group workflows within the Ultra course. This includes both course level groups, but also activity level groups. And with this addition, instructors will be able to group students into hidden groups. These groups are not seen by students. They don't know that they're members of these groups, but they will be available to members of the teaching team. And as I'm sure you can imagine, there are many use cases for hidden groups. They can, for example, be used to delegate or distribute the grading workload within a course. So for example, you could divide a class of 200 students into 10 tutor groups of 20 students each, and then each of the 10 course tutors could filter the gradebook by their tutor group so that they only see the marking workload related to their own tutees. Shifting gears and moving on to the Ultra course view itself. As I mentioned in the previous section, we've been working on the look and feel of the Ultra course view. First, we worked on the top navigation, we changed that around, and now we're introducing the Ultra course banner. Again, this is a highly requested development, and the banner image is linked to the image presented in the course card to provide consistency and a visual evidence to students that they've landed in the right place. This change will enable Ultra courses to have far more of a visual identity, visual appeal, and enable institutions and instructors to, for example, group courses around a subject, a discipline, department, faculty, and so on. And I also think that the banner image will be especially important for our younger students who are still growing their reading skills. By default, the banner is marked as decorative from an accessibility perspective, but we are introducing the ability for instructors to add that important alt text as part of the December release. We've got other work currently ongoing on this page, so we're currently also working on resolving the course faculty name, which we know and understand does not resonate with our client base, as well as improving control over who appears under this heading. And we're also removing the messages icon for institutions who do not allow use of this tool. And we look forward, of course, going forward to further improve the course content page as the landing page for Ultra courses, and continue to work with a number of clients to refine our plans in this area. Shifting focus slightly here, but still within the Ultra course and UI, a core focal point for enhancement in Learn is around inclusiveness and how we can better support diversity, equity, and inclusion within our platform. And in this regard, we've spent extensive time researching with students group and institutional leaders, as well as sending out surveys to gain qualitative feedback. And what we understand based upon the data set that we gathered and what we learned is that we need to strike that right balance between institutional data processes, user control, and transparency. This is key. So in this regard, we've embarked on a multi-milestone project, first with pronouns and name pronunciation, and with the first part of this work, as you can see, students will be able to determine their preferred pronouns in a system of record, such as a student information system, and have those preferences pushed through to Learn through the SIS integration framework. Or the alternative approach is for administrators to define the options in the admin panel and allow your users to select them as part of their profile setup. And this information, then, these pronouns will be displayed to classmates and their academics in key interaction points within the Ultra course view. And building then on this pronouns work, we're in active development on supporting name pronunciation. It's vitally important to allow all users to be respectful of others by seeing and hearing how names are pronounced correctly and appropriately. This is particularly valuable for users with less common names or who have more varied backgrounds. And so supporting this capability helps to foster that continued global and community level support for users. And it's something that we're really proud to bring to our clients and by extension to your users. And we will continue to build capabilities post these feature updates to include giving students a choice between displaying their given name as well as an additional preferred name in the interface. And as part of that next set of work, students will be able to set their preferred display name. So that's the name that's displayed to their peers, while instructors will continue to see both their given names and the preferred names so that they can relate the student back to another system of record. Next up are a set of planned improvements related to admin support. First up are updates to notifications and email styling. On that sort of note, we've continued to hear feedback from clients that the layout and styling of the email notifications sent out by Learn are not intuitive. They don't offer the key information to end users, and they can also be difficult to read. And so as a response, we've reviewed and updated our email styling templates in order to address these issues. But additionally, we're also working on enhancing the URLs sent out as part of the notification emails to ensure that they are brand aware. And this work will support clients who use the institutional hierarchy, for example, for devolved administration, and who have multi-authentication configurations set up on their system. And the benefit of this work is to ensure that institutions using multi-brand configurations within their Learn environment, the users clicking on the links in the email notifications generated are seeing the correct brand in the LMS when they're following the link in these email notifications. And continuing on in the theme of admin improvements, another key area is supporting institutions with their ability to manage end of course lifecycle processes, including reclaiming Learn storage. And this is an area of paramount importance to us. So in this regard, we're in active development at the moment on a project providing Learn administrators with a method to support self-service management of course level data. So the first iteration of this work will include the ability for administrators to bulk archive courses by term. And alongside that, administrators will have the ability to configure an AWS S3 bucket for offline storage to reduce disk usage in their Learn production instances and shift these archived courses onto a cheaper storage solution. We'll also be supporting the ability for automatic cleanup of user-generated packages as part of this project as well. So doing what we can here to kind of aid you in storage management in Learn. So some really great improvement here related to Learn storage management. Right, so this concludes the 1 to 3 month section. But before we move on to the next section of what's coming in the 3 to 6 months period, I just want to give you a very quick demo of some of the capabilities that I've just mentioned. So please bear with me for just a moment whilst I'll set that up. Right, let me just go ahead and share my screen here. So what should be coming through to you in just a moment is me logged into one of our pre-production Learn Ultra instances. So what you've seen is me logged in as an instructor, and I've landed on the course page. But before we dive into the Ultra course view as well, I just quickly wanted to move on to my profile. And essentially, if I click on the basic information, what you will see here is that we have this new ability for you to select a pronoun. So again, this is information that can be set by students in a system of record, and you can push that information into Learn and lock it down through the SIS integration. But the other approach, which is what I'm demonstrating here, is where the administrator has gone in and they've configured the available pronoun options on the back end, which allows your end users to select them from this drop-down list. Back to the courses page, we're going to enter the course called Foundation Artificial Intelligence. But before I click on it, I'll just ask you to make a brief mental note of the image displayed on the course card. So what you see here in this Ultra course is the new Ultra course UI, or an iteration of it. And the first thing that you'll note is the new navigation menu. So we moved away from the icon-based navigation onto this text-based navigation, which is sticky at the top of the page. We've also relocated the student preview option from the details and action menu to the top right-hand corner of the page, where any users who's previously used the original course experience would expect to find it. Some other things that I wanted to make you aware of. The first one is course groups. So expanding here, you'll see I have a group called tutor groups. And I've got this availability to kind of toggle visibility. I can make it visible to students, but I'll leave it hidden for now. So this is a hidden group, not visible to students, but available to the teaching team for various purposes. I also want to draw your attention to the course image, where I can, as an instructor, edit the display settings. And what I can do, I can go ahead and toggle on the course image. As you can see from an accessibility point of view, it's marked as decorative by default. But as in this pre-production release system, I have the option to add the image description from an old perspective if you're using images to convey information. And like I said, this capability will become available to you as part of the December release. So enabling the course image will, of course, display it at the top of the page. You also see the course progress tracking. So this is where, as an instructor, can go on and turn on progress tracking for students within my courses. The other thing I wanted to point out, I mentioned that we've created support for tables in the rich text editor. And here you have an Ultra document with a table. So you can very much now quickly and easily create information and display them in a tabular format. You can very easily go and create new tables. And as you can see, we've taken that Microsoft Word approach to quickly and easily create new tables. But also clicking into a table, you have these controls, which makes it very easy for you to add new columns, as well as delete rows. And from an accessibility point of view, you have the ability to mark header rows and header columns with an information prompt to ensure that the tables that you're creating for your users are both responsive and accessible. And finally, let's dive into the Gradebook. So I mentioned that we've recently introduced Gradebook filters, and they're available to you in the Gradebook grid view. You can go and click on the filtering option, and it will pop up that side panel I mentioned, where you can quickly and easily look at a combination of students, groups, gradable items, or assignment categories, for example. You can quickly apply filters and just as quickly remove them. And what I wanted to draw your attention for is the group filter, of course, that combined with these hidden groups that I mentioned, make it very easy for instructors in large classes that either are using grading teams or tutor groups, for example, to quickly on the back end divide the class into multiple groups and then filter the grade center based upon those groups to kind of narrow down the visibility and help them find the information related to their students only. Right, that concludes the end of today's demo. I'm going to hand you back over to Judy, who's going to talk you through the 3 to 6 month section, outlining work currently in progress. Judy, back over to you.
Thanks, Frederick. So let me bring the deck back. Just a second, and we can go to the 3 to 6 months. So as mentioned at the beginning, the first section that we just saw, this is just taking a while, was the one that we have the biggest certainty around. This is going to be a little bit more of uncertainty, but however, are things that are already in progress or they're near to start the development process, and in which we are always actively looking for some more feedback around it. So just a second, I'm almost there. Thank you. Thanks. So let's go to the first one. Okay, so by default, learns accept late student submissions, but depending on the scenario, this might not be desirable for instructors. There are scenarios, for example, in high-stakes digital exams, when a student submitting late is neither desirable or acceptable. In order to work around this, most instructors will have the assignment to prevent late submissions, like this was mentioned in the chat. The unfortunate side effect of this is that students consider grades and feedback when assignments are hidden, which creates frustration and anxiety. So in order to resolve this particular issue and to provide instructors with greater flexibility in how they handle or enforce their assessment results, we are introducing new capabilities for instructors to prevent late submissions without having to hide the activity. Going forward, instructors will be able to prohibit late submissions by enforcing a hard deadline, as well as being able to prevent new attempts from being started once the due date has passed. We also know that it's important to select how do you want to display the questions to your students. Our planned approach is to first provide instructors with a quick and easy way, an option to configure their test to display to students one question at a time, along with the option for instructors to prevent students from backtracking in tests. Once we have delivered this, we'll look to provide the option to add page breaks directly into the test authoring interface, giving them ultimate flexibility in what content they want to present in each of their pages. So if I, as an instructor, want to have a page that has a particular topic and it's just 4 questions and the next one is 5 questions, I will be able to do so. From a student perspective, this new development introduces a new test-taking experience where we will provide them with the key information needed for devising or changing their test-taking strategy, namely progress tracking. We could have a repositioning timer and a total number of questions and number of questions remaining. So this will also enhance the student experience when presenting a test, so they will have much more information of what is left and what is the progress that they have already been having in their test, in their assessment. Now, this is something that I also saw that was coming in the chat and is related to submission receipts. So building on the work completed under the first milestone of assignment receipts in Ultra, we're in active development now of the second milestone, which will bring the capability to allow instructors to retrieve a student submission based on the associated confirmation number presented within the student submission receipt. So that is a number that they receive either when they first see this pop-up window, when they have just submitted their paper, or what they receive via email. We are also including the option to display the size of the file submitted by students. This was actually coming from direct client feedback when we presented the first milestone. So the instructor can know and gain insight into what the student has submitted and if they have indeed attached a submission for grading, or perhaps they didn't attach anything to their submission. Now, we continue with the focus on assessment and grading, as you have been seeing. We are looking to provide instructors with greater control when it comes to releasing test feedback to students. In addition to existing display options, instructors will be able to prohibit students from seeing the test after submitting. Right now, you can say, yes, I don't want them to see the automated feedback or the question score or the correct answers. Now you will also have the option to decide they won't be able to see the questions at all. So they cannot see what they have been answering previously. Along with this, we also want to prevent students from seeing any results or seeing the test mark until a later date. Also something that I saw was coming in the chat. So if you don't want your students to see what has been the total grade that they have been gained with this particular assessment, you can hold that information and you see that that is the proper time that they will have access to that particular information. Again, these are highly requested developments which will introduce welcome improvements for an assessment and academic integrity perspective. It's taking a while there, but yeah. We also have the second milestone for progress tracking. So in the first section, we focus on the student experience. Now we want to focus on the instructor experience when we will be providing more detailed information on a student's progress for instructors that want to track what their students are doing. This will be presented in a way of a new filtering capability based on the student's progress, allowing quick access for instructors. So if I want to check all my students that perhaps haven't even opened an assignment that is due for today, and reach out to them and say, hey, you may want to check what is going on with this assessment. You need to check it out because the due date is today. You will have the possibility to do so. This is coming as part of the second milestone of progress tracking. Along with this milestone, and again, something that came in the chat is the possibility that administrators will have the possibility to enable or disable progress tracking institution-wise. Another area that was identified in our research with the students was the idea of micro-reactions, small, quick, and direct ways to provide feedback, but also to help foster a sense of belonging. Another reason why this is interesting is because it generates more sentiment-like insights, which is not something we have today and could be used in interesting ways by rolling it up to the instructor level or even the institutional level. We are currently in development of the ability to add a student workflow where students will be able to give feedback to instructors on different content types in courses. So if I want to check if, in fact, the document that I have put together for my students has been meaningful, it is giving useful information for them, my students will be able to provide feedback to me in an anonymous fashion. So that removes the I just blink here, but this will help students to feel more confident about sharing their feedback with their instructors, knowing that this will be shared in an anonymous fashion. This feedback will be aggregated and displayed in different reports. Building on the momentum of Microsoft Teams classes integration, Blackboard and Microsoft are excited to push forward on our next set of projects to deepen integration of Learn Ultra with Microsoft OneDrive. This is the first in a series of planned milestones supporting document linking, file collaboration, and assignment support. The first milestone will look to support a direct link file from Microsoft SharePoint in Learn Ultra, allowing an academic instructor to continue to edit within M365 online and the file staying in a sync within the LMS. This integration will provide a more detailed and flexible access to Microsoft's OneDrive file picker, allowing an academic to search and manage their files directly from within an Ultra course. Future milestones on this project will include the ability to support document collaborative authoring for students, which I know is quite important, and deeper ultra assessment integrations, providing flexibility and support for institutions using Microsoft 365 tools. Also, based on feedback, we are working on projects to give administrators better ways to manage the use of storage on their environments. One project is to provide administrators the option to set a maximum file size on the system. Users will be warned in their natural workflow that they cannot upload a file if it's too large. They will also be informed which file or files were too big. Admins can also optionally recommend other storage to users, such as licensed cloud storage or video streaming services. I know this one will be great news for administrators once it comes out, since this is something that has been highly requested and we hear a lot from our administrators. Also, we are continuing to make incremental improvements to the core workflows within Ultra based on client feedback. A prime example of this is in regards to the learning module improvements. This body of work will support greater usability and consistency of editing and creating a learning module in line with other content types within Ultra. We are expanding the character limit within this description based on client feedback. Now is 250 characters. It will be expanded to 750 to allow more detail to be added by the instructors. We are also continually evaluating the user flows and how often instructors need to click or find settings in Ultra. And with that, we are moving the for sequence option out of the release conditions panel to allow this to be elevated and easier to find for instructors to enable. Actually, I want to highlight that this particular project and the designs for this particular project were consulted with you in one of the administrator teaching and enabling office hours. So this is one of the examples of the things that we are doing to continuously keep having and keep bringing the feedback that you give to us into the things that we are developing and that we are planning. Now with that, we are going to move to the last part, the last section, which is the long-term highlights. These are truly important for us because they are the direct picture of how we are moving forward, how we are thinking, and how do we want to evolve in Ultra. So you will see this direct link with the pillars that were mentioned at the beginning of the session. To start with the session, as you may have guessed, we will continue to be very focused on critical assessment and grading projects. Planned projects in this area include, for example, being able to grade by question. So if I'm as an instructor want to really just focus on that essay type question that is at the end of my assessment without messing or confusing my mind with other questions, I will be able to grade just this question to all my students and then go back to another question. We are also planning on improving the student experience by bringing better consistency of how to save across all question types. While this might be perceived as a small thing, it will be huge for students since this consistency is key for the learning, so our brains aren't too much overwhelmed with other things and can focus really on learning. We also plan on distributing marking responsibility to different graders by group memberships, making it easy to assign tutorial groups and other grouping to graders and assistants, as well as improving question banks and expanding the types of available question types. For example, we are doing some exploration around how to include hotspot questions inside Ultra, which we know will be greatly appreciated by medicine faculties, for example. In the longer time frame, we want to keep addressing additional common needs we hear from clients, Like, we know it is important for instructors to allow students to have exceptions on specific assignments, tests, and discussions. Today, we do support additional attempts or different visibility settings by a student. However, we want to also support and expand through individual due date adjustments, creating a more personalized experience for students and simplifying late calculations from instructors. Something that we have heard a lot is that if instructors are not able to change the due date for a particular student for a particular assessment, this brings a whole load of work of them having to adjust different things. So the grade of the student, and you can multiply this for 20 students, is not affected by this particular change. We'll also be looking at the workflow of exemptions, which I know also has been coming out in the chat. For example, remove a single score for a single student from a gradebook calculation if a student has a reasonable reason for which the assessment was skipped. So as you can see, there are lots of things to come in this particular area. Also, in addition to the features specific to assessment and grading, we will be increasing our focus on the usability and efficiency of core workflows within Ultra. Some of the planned areas of improvement include, and I want to do a brief pause here because I know this will make happy a lot of people in here. We will be improving the drag and drop experience, supporting instructor efficiencies in content and course creation. We will continue to invest in overview, summary, and landing pages, and refining existing workflows within the Ultra UI to support easier setup, navigation, and use. We have several opportunities coming up for you to participate in research, testing, and feedback around this. So stay tuned. If you want to talk to us about drag and drop, for example, we have been engaging in different conversations to actually see if the workflows that we are proposing and the visual cues that we are giving are what you're expecting from us. Then, there it is. We also continue to, just a second, work in line with the best-in-class pillar. We are continuing to expand our support and deepen the integrations with cloud providers such as Microsoft and Google. In development partnership with Microsoft and with research feedback obtained from global clients, our initial development work is targeting the Microsoft Teams end user experience. These enhanced features will be both for team classes and team meetings. We will also be expanding the integrations to support wider M365 file and collaboration flows. Beyond that, we are going to be offering capabilities for universal design for learning by leveraging Microsoft Immersive Reader. There's even more that we are talking to Microsoft about as we continue to strengthen our deepen our relationship. As part of this work, and this might be a question that you have in this moment, we are building out key workflows that we then want to leverage in very similar ways with Google and the Google Suite. We'll really be aiming for that seamless integration that feels part of the experience and allows for data to flow back and forth in logical ways. At Blackboard, our clients' feedback is of paramount importance to us. It is really important, and you perhaps may be a little bit tired of me saying this, but this is really huge for us. Your feedback is really important for us. And as such, we are always looking at ways to make sure that we can use the feedback to improve the end user experience. One of these core areas is that of messages and notifications. We have continued to make incremental improvements to messages with additions such as the new message indicator in base navigation and support read-only messages at institutions level, but we know that that is not enough. We know that clients have been requesting more granular message functionality, additional feature enhancements, and more fine-grained control over notifications. As part of our longer-term roadmap, it is our intention to enhance the messages and notifications capabilities within Learn Ultra, supporting features such as improved direct and group-based messaging in Ultra, and supporting greater institutional personalization with email branding capabilities. Again, we are having some great conversations with some of you around messages and what is those things that you're expecting from us. So if you want to participate, I highly recommend you, not recommend you, but encourage you to get in contact with us and share your thoughts with us. And finally, as part of this 6 plus framework, we continue to make progress on our path to consolidate our mobile applications, reducing the complexity of supporting multiple apps and providing consistency of experience for end users. We're working on ways to reduce the differences between the web experiences and the native mobile experiences, focusing on how responsive web design can offer more predictability in user experiences, in the user experience between desktop and mobile, which will maximize the opportunities for new feature releases to be available on mobile. So we can have the same release in desktop as we have in mobile. With that, I just presented everything that we have planned for you for today for these roadmaps. I just want to end with this really quick poll. So if one of my colleagues in the chat can help me out putting this poll in here, we would like to gain your feedback on those items that you're most excited about. If your option is not listed, perhaps you're most excited about PV annotated improvements, granular accommodations, points-based rubrics, whatever, please go ahead and answer in the chat. All of this feedback really help us to align our direction, the items that we have prioritized, and they allow us to gain validation that we are on the right track. Feel free to respond. I'll just leave this for a second, and thanks so much. With that, I think that I'm handing over to Nico Franco to close the session.
Thanks, Judy. So, if you have any questions that didn't get answered, please join the community. It's a great way to stay connected. Join the user groups as well. There will be a lot of information to come in the roadmap section of the community site. And as I said at the beginning, we will be posting the recording and the decks that I know that you guys value a lot. So uh, without further ado, thanks so much again, and see you soon.